This is the True Crime Nation podcast with your hosts, Todd and Brian. If you're enjoying the show or have suggestions for future shows, you can email us at truecrimenation@outlook.com. And as always, let's start the show. And we are back. I'm Brian. That right over there is Todd. And this is the True Crime Nation podcast. What's up, buddy?
What's going on? Brian, tonight, as we talked about before, for the listeners, we thought we'd touch base on some of the most deranged serial killers of all time.
Yeah.
Some of the ones that we're not too familiar with. Some of the less known ones, but still very disturbing serial killers. You know, we like to talk...
psychopaths.
Right. We like to talk about different things on the show, less known, not go over the same olds. So I think this will be interesting. We can read about some of these, do some little points on these guys, and discuss and see what we think about. So take it away, sir.
All right. When you think of psychology, the first thing that comes to your mind might not be serial killers. Yet, psychologists have long tried to understand why some people become serial killers. Is there a genetic component? Is the environment in which the person grows up in to blame for their behavior? Or is it a combination of factors that turns people into terrifying killers? While every case is different, psychologists have tried to point out a variety of factors that might mold someone into a serial killer. It is important to note that there is no particular cause of serial killing, but the traits tend to be common amongst serial killers. There are biological, social, and physio and psychological underpinnings to this behavior. People that become serial killers are often intrinsically motivated by reasons they consider to be important. Serial killers occur among a variety of demographic groups, including people of different races, genders, ages, and religions. Serial killers who are motivated by sex typically began to sexualize violence during childhood. And we've had a few of those.
Yeah, we have.
Already on the show.
Definitely.
So, who we got first?
Well, let's talk about this Harold Shipman guy. I've heard of him before, but I don't really know his claim to fame so much.
Yeah, I've heard the name, Dr. Death. Harold Shipman, nicknamed Dr. Death. Harold Shipman is thought to be responsible for murdering 218 of his patients between 72 and 98. In reality, the number of people he murdered is likely much higher. Oh, that's right. He's that doctor that offed his patients. I have heard of this guy. As a practicing physician, Shipman had easy access to potential victims, which is why he was able to be such a prolific killer without raising suspicion. However, because Shipman was involved in so many cases in which patients died, people eventually began to suspect foul play. Most of his victims were elderly women whom he said had died in their sleep, but many of these women died during the day, which struck some as odd. Additionally, Shipman asked for an unusually large number of cremation certificates, which caught the attention of an undertaker who reported the odd circumstances of the cremations. Eventually, Shipman was convicted in 2000, but only after the victim's daughter responded that he had tried to write a will for the victim that would name him as the beneficiary. He died by suicide in prison in 2004. Suicide. That's air quotes, suicide.
Air quotes, suicide.
Yeah.
I've heard of this guy before. I did not realize he was that recent.
I didn't realize he had killed that many.
Or killed that many. So he was a doctor over patients in a hospital and who had maybe...
Apparently elderly people.
Yeah. So... wonder how he was killing them.
Poison, maybe? I don't know.
Suffocation.
He's a doctor. Could be anything.
Yeah. What?
Oh, a certain kind of medication, probably knock him out. Maybe a mixture of medications.
It's, man, it's one thing.
Anything.
It's one thing to worry about somebody you care about getting abducted and killed by a serial killer, right? One thing. It's another thing when you're going to a hospital and the person you love and care about is in the hospital in serious conditions, so to speak, and or maybe not even serious condition, and then you're being told they're dead.
Right.
And it's because there's some sadistic doctor who has a license who decides, I'm going to be a serial killer and kill people in the hospital.
To cure people, and he's killing them instead.
Can you imagine the grief
Sounds great.
and the anger you would have when she found that out?
How could you ever trust another doctor? That's the thing.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
Yeah, that'd be...
Well, so much for Harold Shipman. I'm glad he took his life in 2004.
Yeah, no kidding. Yep. Goodbye,
Pay
Dr.
for
Death.
his worthless ass anymore. Who else you got?
Piece of crap. Andre Chikatilo. 1936 to 1994. What did he do, you ask? Well, between 1978 and 1990, the Russian serial killer Andre Chikatilo sexually assaulted, murdered, and mutilated more than 50 young women and children. Here we go again with the kids.
Oh my God. Why do we do this
Well,
to
I
ourselves?
realize there's probably not a whole lot to do in Russia, especially in the winter, since it's always winter.
Right.
But come on, man, kids. Well, I mean, any kind of serial killer, but
These guys don't care. I mean, they're gone. They're mentally just gone to be able to do this to kids.
yeah, it's ridiculous. Chikatilo killed his victims by stabbing and slashing them with a knife. One of the youngest was 9 years old. Chikatilo later admitted that he was only able to achieve orgasm by stabbing women, a fact which made it difficult for him to resist his strong urges to kill. Chikatilo was named the Butcher of Rostov, the Red Ripper, and the Rostov Ripper. Though he confessed to a total of 56 brutal murders, he was tried for 53, sentenced to death, and executed by firing squad in 1994. See,
Good.
They need to bring firing squads back.
Yeah. I was hoping something brutal happened to this guy. At least hung him or something. Yeah.
That's the way to go.
Firing
hang
squad.
him in the courtyard, the courthouse lawn, or just shoot him against a wall.
But torture him first. I say set him on. I say burn him alive. I say burn him on fire.
I'm good with that too.
I say burn him at the stake. That's got to be one of the worst ways to go, is it being burnt.
Oh yeah,
feet first, feet first, and it's coming up your body, and you just
know
screaming.
it's coming.
Pretty soon, you just go into shock, and then you just burn to a crisp.
Yeah, at some point, the pain is just gonna knock you out.
Shut you down.
Mm-hmm.
But it hurt a hell of a lot more than a firing squad, probably. Anyway.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't like getting burnt. Can you imagine standing there on top of a pile of wood, roasted?
God, no. Hell
no. Let's see.
Who else you got on there?
Albert Fish.
Albert Fish.
1870 to 1936. This is an old one.
Okay.
When a serial killer is dubbed the Brooklyn Vampire, the Moon Maniac, or the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Gray Man, and the Boogeyman, it's almost certain he is thoroughly deranged.
I would say so.
That is an understatement. Fish was tried and found guilty of raping, killing, and cannibalizing 3 children in the early 1900s. However, he claimed that he had murdered more than 100 children and even boasted that he had children in every state. My God. Especially deranged is the fact that Fish sent a letter to one of his victims, 10-year-old Grace Budd. The letter detailed how he had lured the little girl, strangled her, and then cut her into pieces to eat. I mean,
maybe
what do you do with people like that? You have to kill them.
I think we got to do a whole show on this guy.
Yes, I think this is going to be worth it.
I don't want to because it pisses me off, but I think we need to do a whole show on this guy because I want to know what happened, how he got caught. Obviously, he's dead, right? How old was he?
Yeah.
66?
Yep.
It's interesting to find out.
The course of 9 days. Man, there's nothing you can do with a guy like that but kill him.
That's worse than like your Ted Bundy because it's kids again, and then you're taunting the parents, telling them in detail.
And he's eating them.
Yeah, and he's a
Ted
cannibal.
Bundy didn't eat nobody.
This guy's worse than he's a Ted Bundy and a Dahmer combined. Maybe with little John Wayne Gacy in there. I don't know.
Probably more than John Wayne Gacy because he had kids.
How did Albert Fish die? I'm going to look it up right here. Capital punishment. Yeah,
Jesus.
executed by electric chair. They fried that son of a bitch.
Good.
Fuck yeah, they did.
I hope it took a long time.
That's another one too. Either electrocution or burning. Those two would be one of the worst ways it goes because electrocution fries you from the inside. Basically.
I don't know. I think hanging would be a bad way to
be
go.
too quick.
If your neck doesn't break,
Be too quick.
you're just going to stay. No, not if your neck doesn't break.
Yeah, if your neck doesn't.
You know how long
break.
it takes you to. You know how long it takes to strangle?
Well, yeah, if your neck doesn't break, but it's made to break your neck, isn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't always.
No.
All right, let's see what we got going on here. All right, so write Albert Fish down.
All right, we'll
dig
document
into him
Mr.
some more.
Albert Fish. I'll circle him.
This is my favorite unsolved serial killer.
Who are you talking about?
I think it's a lot of people's favorite.
Who are you talking
Jack
about?
the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper.
Unidentified serial killer, 1888. It just blows my mind that they never identified. Which I get it, there's no DNA or anything back then, but man, Jack the Ripper may be a name that everyone knows, but no one can be certain of his true identity. Whoever he or she really was, Jack the Ripper was definitely deranged. In 1888, Jack the Ripper terrorized the Whitechapel neighborhood of London by slitting the throats and the abdomens of at least 5 prostitutes and leaving them for dead. Sometimes he would even remove the women's uterus and take it as sort of a prize. It's unlikely Jack the Ripper's true identity will ever be figured out, but Ripperology, the study and analysis of the murders, has certainly inspired quite a few what-if novels and films over the years. Ripperology.
Never heard of that.
Me either. I might have to study that.
Didn't we talk about this before somewhere, sometime, somehow? And it almost came to where there was some theories on who the person really was, and they thought it was maybe a medical student or something like that.
That's
some
a
young
lot.
guy.
Someone who this guy was.
But you said something in there.
Doc, medical student. Some even said he was part of the royal family.
Yeah.
So,
But you said something in here that kind of struck me. You said whoever he or she really was. Maybe it could have been a woman.
yeah, well, it could have been. Nobody knows.
What if it was a woman who was mad because her husband left her for a prostitute or gave her something, disease or something, or never know.
Again, these are the questions we ask about Jack the Ripper.
Or maybe his mother was a prostitute. I wonder if they ever looked into that. Prostitutes
Oh, I'm sure they have.
who had kids.
At least I hope they would, or otherwise they missed a whole line of investigation there.
So he called himself Jack the Ripper, right? That's how he signed stuff. Jack was the name that he called himself.
Right. Well,
His real name.
I think that, if I remember right, the papers named him that.
Okay.
And then when he wrote his first letter, he signed it Jack the Ripper.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, that one just is amazing. How
Yeah.
that person got away
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. And now he's dead, so nobody's ever going to know.
Maybe. You never know. DNA could somehow, some way.
If they preserved it, anything, maybe. If he was careless and got caught, cut, or scratched or something.
But there's probably nothing.
I wouldn't think so. All right.
Who else we got here? Moving on.
Who is Joachim Kroll?
Who is he?
1933 to 1991. German serial killer Joachim Kroll murdered at least 14 people, including young children.
Well, of course.
Man, you really know how to pick them. Between 55 and 76. After strangling his victims with his bare hands, Kroll would have sex with their corpses and cut them up in pieces
He's
to
like
eat.
the other dude.
Interestingly, Kroll was finally caught after the neighbor complained about a backup in the plumbing. The pipes were clogged with human remains. When Kroll was arrested, he was in the process of simmering body parts taken from his most recent victim, 4-year-old Marion, 4 years old.
Oh my God, this dude.
Marion
okay.
Ketter.
We got to do one on him too, I think, because
Yeah, I think him and Albert Fisher are
these guys are
pretty
terrible. Was Albert Fisher an American? Albert Fish, an American. These
Yeah.
foreign dudes
The
seem to be.
Brooklyn Vampire.
Oh, that's right. Some of these foreign dudes seem to be like just
Especially these Germans. The Germans always seem to be
terrible.
cannibals.
Joe Chim. What kind of name is that? How did Joe Chim Kroll die? Heart attack.
Doesn't say. Really?
After a 151-day trial, he was convicted on all counts and given a life sentence. He died of a heart attack in 1991. Yeah, this is
Dang it.
Kids, man. The kids. It's just
I know,
these
that's what
guys
gets
prey
me.
on the kids. They're not out of the game for them.
Joseph James D'Angelo,
Oh,
1945 to present, still alive.
still alive? Is he?
Yep. And in prison now.
Oh yeah, thank God.
Though his crimes occurred decades ago, between 74 and 86, Joseph James D'Angelo wasn't identified as the Golden State Killer until DNA evidence from one of his crimes was used to match with a close relative of D'Angelo's, which led to his identification and arrest. Over the course of 3 separate crime sprees, D'Angelo murdered at least 13 people, raped more than 50, and committed well over 100 burglaries. And that's why he was a robber, too. One of the reasons why D'Angelo was able to evade identification and capture for so long is because he was a former police officer. His training undoubtedly helped him in planning executing his crimes while minimizing the physical evidence he left behind. In fact, he was known to have called some of his victims months before the attack so he could learn their routine to more effectively plan his crimes. In some instances, he even broke into the homes of his victims so he could unlock doors and windows and even leave items like ropes and other ligatures he could use to tie up his victims upon his return. Wow. One of the most chilling aspects of D'Angelo's crimes is that he often taunted his victims, staying for hours in their homes, ransacking it, eating their food, and threatening to kill their families. In some cases, he targeted couples whom he would separate. He would sometimes force a female victim to tie up the male victim. He would then place plates on the male victim's back so he could hear if the victim tried to move. D'Angelo could then commence with raping the female victim in another room. D'Angelo was also known to hide in the home, tricking his victims into thinking that he'd left, only to jump out of the shadows. He would often take souvenirs of his crimes with him as trophies to remind him of what he'd done. What a...
You know, I think I heard
My God.
What happened was one of his relatives, a younger girl, and I don't even know how closely related she was to him, close enough, sent off and got one of those ancestry kits. And somehow that pulled him, it tied her to, I don't know how it all works, the DNA, but that's how it, because one of his relatives did an ancestry test.
Wow.
And that's how they're catching a lot of people now, because people are doing those.
Good.
You know, if you're related to someone who's doing this stuff, they can somehow pinpoint them down. But yeah, this guy, he's on his deathbed. He's so old.
Oh yeah, he's old. He's gonna die soon. He's gonna die in prison.
But yeah, he was terrible because he was a cop. You know, and I think he was doing this stuff while he was a cop.
Yeah, probably. If he was doing that much, it wouldn't surprise me a bit.
You know, again, if someone breaks in my house and wants to tie me up, it ain't going that far. I'll be dead if they do it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not getting tied up. You're not tying me up. You will have to shoot me first. Period.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to die either way, so you might as well go out fighting.
Yep. Son of a bitch.
All right, my friend. You want to save some of these for another time?
Sounds good to me. We can continue this on another show. We've got several more guys we can talk about.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the whole thing with the kids, that just really gets me, man.
Man, me too.
I'm seeing that more and more as we do these shows, how many kids are victims of these guys.
Yeah, you just never realize it until you start researching.
You know, there's no morals or fences for these guys. There's nothing, nothing out of their realm that's safe.
Yep.
As much as I hate talking about these things, I do enjoy learning about them, and
Yeah, me too.
it just helps you realize what kind of sick and
And
demented,
saying we're glad most of them are dead.
twisted people. Yeah, twisted people are in this world, and hopefully, you know, like we've talked about before, technology might be deterring some of these guys, but they're definitely out there. They're definitely out there. So,
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep. So stay vigilant. Be aware of your surroundings.
exactly. Don't take for granted that, you
And
know,
nowadays, always travel in twos if you can.
yep. Carry a gun, pepper
Just
spray,
saying.
whatever you got to
Yeah.
do. We're here to help. We don't want to see you guys
We're
get
here.
fight.
That's right. We don't want to
whatever
see
you gotta
anybody
do.
on this list.
Scratch, scream, yell, whatever you got to do.
Yeah. Bite.
Yes, bite. That's a good one.
Whatever.
Kick. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll wrap it up with that, my friend. Another good episode.
All right, brother. Yep.
Thanks
That was
again
good.
for hanging out and reading that stuff. And
Yeah, man. Always
sharing
fun.
that with
Always
us.
learning.
Listeners, thanks again for listening. And remember,
Monsters are real.